Medical disclaimer. The content of this video is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and always get proper treatment for serious medical conditions. Legal disclaimer. Use only legal measures to combat the virus and cooperate with government officials, first responders, and healthcare workers to make the coronavirus a thing of the past and create a perfect society ASAP. Use common sense, logic, and help your fellow humans if necessary, also to lower the risk of being vaccinated mandatorily ourselves and to end the pandemic as soon as possible. The objective of my videos is not to slander people nor to incite or trigger people, but to do the opposite, exposing it when people are wrongly accused, and to create universal peace, world peace, or just peace on earth. People are innocent till proven guilty in the court of law. One who knows of evidence must testify, not to convict anyone without a fair trial. Greetings, spirit beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemies, death, welcome on perfect society. This is the broadcast. George Floyd had COVID-19 and why George Floyd was arrested. First, I'd like to start with a Malcolm X quote. The media, the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. Quote Malcolm X. Okay, so I have two articles basically, so they're mainstream media articles, so it's not my own claim. And I'm gonna pop out the chat. Alright, so now the first article, I think Forbes. I'm going to read Forbes first. So this is the Forbes article. George Floyd had coronavirus autopsy finds, but it wasn't a factor in his death. And the other article I want to read is why George Floyd was arrested and what happened in the minutes following. So let's see if the text-to-speech engine works or if I have to restart that. Clipboard watch is on, so I think it's not working. I'll have to restart it. Always when I restart Open Broadcaster software, the software that I'm using here, wonderful freeware, I have to restart the text-to-speech engine as well. So what have they planned? Have they planned martial law? Have they planned a civil war, perhaps? Wiki slash Derek Chauvin was the police officer. That's also an interesting wiki article. Oh, that's not a wiki article, but another article. The Boogaloo movement is another one. Okay, now then we can finally start reading. Sorry for the wait.
Leadership, money, business, small business, lifestyle, business advisor featured breaking more. Breaking vertical bar 44,032 views vertical bar June 3, 2020, 11:08. George Floyd had coronavirus, autopsy finds, but it wasn't a factor in his death. Rachel Sandler Forbes staff business. I cover breaking news. Updated June 3, 2020. 11:17 p.m. EDT. Top line: George Floyd had the coronavirus when he died May 25 while being forcibly restrained by Minneapolis police, according to the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's autopsy report, but the pathologist determined that COVID-19 did not play a role in Floyd's death. A mural of George Floyd is shown painted on the side of Scott Food Mart in the 3rd Ward before a plus photo by Sergio Flores. Getty Images. Key facts: a post-mortem nasal swab found that Floyd had COVID-19 when he died, according to the autopsy report, which was released publicly with permission from Floyd's family. The medical examiner said Floyd tested positive for the disease on April 3 and was likely asymptomatic when he died. COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted Black Americans, and Minnesota is no different. Blacks make up 5.3% of the state population, but account for 22% of total COVID-19 cases in the state, according to Minnesota Health Department data. The toxicology report said Floyd had fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system when he died, as well as cannabis compounds and morphine. A press release summarizing the report Monday listed arteriosclerotic and hypertensive heart disease, fentanyl intoxication, and recent methamphetamine use as other significant conditions but not cause of death. The medical examiner found Floyd died of cardiopulmonary arrest while being restrained, ruling his death a homicide, a different finding than a separate autopsy commissioned by Floyd's family, which found the cause of death to be asphyxia. Crucial quote: whether or not he was intoxicated or had medications in his system is irrelevant to the cause of death, which is homicide, which is death by the hand of another, Floyd family attorney Antonio Romain-Usai told CNN. The end result, which is George Floyd's death, would not be any different. Newsbug. After a week of protests and riots across the county, all 4 officers who were on the scene when Floyd was killed have now been charged with felonies. Derek Chauvin, the officer who pinned Floyd to the ground and continued to kneel on his neck while Floyd yelled that he couldn't breathe, had his charges bumped up to second-degree murder on Wednesday, while the other 3 officers were charged with aiding and abetting. Full coverage and live updates on the coronavirus. Follow me on Twitter. Send me a secure tip. Rachel Sandler. I'm a San Francisco-based reporter covering breaking news at Forbes. I've previously reported for USA Today, Business Insider, the San Francisco Business Times, and Sun. Read more. Forbes.com. Visit my JoJo app channels, Try Something, Vegetarian, Perfect Society, and the Future channel on JoJo. MercuryNews.com. Why George Floyd was arrested, and what happened in the minutes following. Surveillance video shows he was complying with the police. By CNN, CNN.com. Published, May 29, 2020.
Oh wow, that's originally by CNN, and I had a copyright thing a while ago, so perhaps it's better if I don't cover that. Let's see. I can check what was important from that article. Mr. Floyd did not voluntarily get in the car and struggled with the officers by intentionally falling down, saying he was not going in the car and refusing to stand still. DA report. MercuryNews.com. district attorney's office. So the point is, what would happen if the officer would not be put in jail, if he were set free, or perhaps he could even get his job back. We don't know. What would happen? Or, well, it depends also, I think, on whether they can back up their claims, basically. And the charge, I think, was third-degree murder, but shouldn't that be first-degree murder, I wonder? Was it premeditated? And can that be proven? Anyway, I've been reading about that Boogaloo stuff, the Boogaloo movement. And members of the Boogaloo movement say they are preparing for a coming second American Civil War, which they call the quote Boogaloo unquote. So perhaps I should read this whole article. And I'm wondering, are they racists? Or are there black people, what they call black people, in the group? Let's just read the whole article. On Wikipedia, the CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia.
The Boogaloo movement, members of which are often referred to as Boogaloo Boys or Boogaloo Boys, is a loosely organized American far-right extremist movement. 345 members of the Boogaloo movement say they are preparing for a coming second American Civil War, which they call the Boogaloo. 36 members use the term to refer to violent uprisings against the federal government or left-wing political opponents, often anticipated to follow government confiscation of firearms. 17. The movement consists of anti-government and anti-law enforcement groups, as well as white supremacist groups who specifically believe the unrest will be a race war. 317. Groups in the Boogaloo movement primarily organize online, particularly on Facebook, but have appeared at in-person events including the 2020 United States anti-lockdown protests and the May 2020 George Floyd protests, often identified by their attire of Hawaiian shirts and military fatigues. 189. Contents 1 Naming and identity 2 Beliefs and structure 3 History 4 See also 5 References.
So I don't see in the wiki article that this is a militant movement, like with the Antifa article, but these people are carrying machine guns, basically.
Six External links Naming and identity The term Boogaloo is a reference to the 1984 cult film Break Into, Electric Boogaloo, an unpopular sequel film that was largely viewed to be a near-exact copy of the original movie. 2. Following the film release, adding to Electric Boogaloo to a phrase became a joking reference to any unwanted or archetypical sequel. 10. The Boogaloo movement adopted their name from the belief there will be a second Civil War, that is, Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo. 511. Members of the Boogaloo movement also use other similar-sounding derivations of the word, including Boog, Boojadeen, Big Igloo, and Big Luau, and have created logos and other imagery incorporating igloo snow huts, and Hawaiian prints. 312.
So don't let my outfit fool you. I am totally anti-fascism, anti-racism, and anti-homophobia, anti-imperialism, anti-dictatorialism, and especially anti-population reduction. But not people who think they are either of these things, homophobic, anti-Semitic, whatever. And also I'm anti-religion. So I think they were just misprogrammed. We're all the human race, our common enemy is death, we're all descendants of Lucy and the hominids, and we don't have time for fussing and fighting, my friend. We need to control factors that control aging and create a perfect society.
.11. The names and the broader imagery are used by members of the Boogaloo movement to avoid crackdowns and automated content flags imposed by social media sites to limit or ban Boogaloo-related content. 13. Members sometimes identify themselves at protests by wearing Hawaiian shirts along with military fatigues. 3-4-11. They have also used other imagery popular among the far right, such as the Pepe the Frog meme. 1-2. Beliefs and structure. Members of Boogaloo groups typically believe in accelerationism, and support any action that will speed impending civil war and eventually the collapse of society. 4-6. According to The Economist, to this end Boogaloo group members have supported the spreading of disinformation and conspiracy theories, attacks on infrastructure, such as that on New York's 311 line, and lone wolf terrorism. 4. J. J. McNabb, a George Washington University.
I think that wouldn't be best for the people, of course, and that they probably wouldn't stand any chance against the Department of Defense, the Army of the United States. And they may implement BFT, Blue Force Tracking. That means everybody could be home quarantined and US citizens would be designated as enemy combatants if they would break the home quarantine. And supermarkets would also close, etc. They may have planned a second coronavirus wave. And in my previous broadcast I explained more about why I use colloidal silver and probiotics, because studies show that colloidal silver destroys SARS coronavirus in reality, and the government is not testing it. Are they collecting rainwater, getting it analyzed in a lab? Do they know if the virus is in there? Or are they spreading it in cancer chemtrails, Project Cloverleaf, CIA's Evergreen Aviation? And for that reason they're not checking the rainwater. I think it would be useful to get that rainwater checked. Even citizens, civilians can get it checked. Perhaps that's how we know the ingredients of these cancer chemtrails, mostly cancer-causing barium, but also altered blood plasma and designer viruses, according to sources online. So I covered that more in previous broadcasts on my channel. Check my channel, Perfect Society. Please like, subscribe and share important videos. And let's read on about the Boogaloo movement. But I think it's time for a Kennedy quote. Mankind must put an end to war before war puts an end to mankind. Okay? John F. Kennedy. And another one people seem to like is those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Isn't peaceful revolution evolution? Something I won't read. If it is best for the people is another matter. The people above all, that's what it's about. All the people. And everybody has equal rights.
fellow researching at e-government extremist groups, notes that it is not a cohesive group, and views differ on a range of other subjects, particularly racism and attitudes to law enforcement. 14. Some groups have been described as a libertarian militia. 15-16. Some Boogaloo groups are also white supremacist and specifically believe that the Boogaloo will be a race war. 317. But there are others that condemn racism. 16-17. Attempts by some elements.
Well, if Trump is bringing in the military, some people disagree with that, but wouldn't it make things safer on the streets? He could also make these protests forbidden and only allow protests against 5G and all other protests, basically, because there have been riots already and there was looting also. Of course, people have been watching these videos. But I think it all wasn't that bad. Chicago had 22 people shot. 82 shot, 22 fatally over Chicago's most violent weekend of 2020, Chicago Sun-Times.com. So then the question is the Boogaloo movement an enemy of the United States in the sense of the amendments, or are they the opposite supposedly? I don't think that creating a civil war would help the people in any way, except if you're dealing with an extremely tyrannical government. So I do like the channel and the videos of Stranger Than Fiction News, ladies and gentlemen, but the question is, how can we create peace? How can we de-escalate this? I think nobody's waiting for a civil war. And wouldn't it be a form of playing the American people out against each other? I'm thinking about Trump's father, allegedly arrested at a KKK march. So that's why we don't need racism, because nobody benefits from that. And I've read that the Jesuits fund both the KKK as well as the Black Panthers, so they may be behind orchestrating this to a certain extent, also because they can control the human mind with synthetic telepathy, remote torture technology, and some people really think they've heard the voice of God. Lots of people have YouTube videos about that as well. There are communications with the fictional deity, and there is a time-traveling neural network, I think, because I've had precognitive visions. And the theory is that natural psychics do not exist. Natural psychics do not exist. Natural psychics do not exist. So I'm not gonna pretend to be something I'm not to get more precognitive visions. I've chosen another path. Well, we can read on. Oh yeah, let's read this. Trump born during a lunar eclipse. That's not what I want to read now. Scrolling down. David Beckman Show uploaded suppression all protest and Floyd videos demonetized. I don't use monetization. Let's see if there's anything in the chat also. But I'm going into some executive orders if they declare martial law. And I think most people know what the conditions are, but I've heard from Senator Dr. Ron Paul, who didn't audit the Fed, by the way, that martial law can be declared for as little reason as other conditions. And then there are the following executive orders now recorded in the Federal Register and therefore accepted by Congress as the law of the land, can be put into effect at any time an emergency is declared. 10,998 seizure of all food resources, farms and farm equipment. 11,000 seizure of all civilians for work under federal supervision. And 11,004 housing and finance authority may shift population from one location to another. Complete integration makes me think of these smart cities, smart cancer cities, compact cities. And I think this is about population reduction. They're trying to create a crisis big enough to impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. And they already know what they want to do, that is inject everybody mandatorily, compulsory vaccinations administered by the military down in the army. And of course, why do people think this?
It's going to have to go to 7 billion people. It's going to have to go to 7 billion people.
And of course we know that there are over 1 million viruses out there, so chances that the pandemic exercise event 21 would be about the same virus are less than 1 in 1 million. And we saw the image of the pig in Event 201 video. That's this one. So how zoonotic is it? Is it spread via animals, and if so, via fish or poultry, or what do you think? Is it zoonotic or not, etc.? And there may be different messages about it also. And I have another interesting image, and I found this via Stranger Than Fiction News. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. I'm Tedros Adhanom. I'm not a doctor. I'm Tedros Adhanom. I'm not a doctor. Or is it Adhamon? I was a Marxist terrorist until I took over the World Health Organization. I'm Bill Gates. I'm not a doctor. I was a tech nerd until I decided there were too many people on Earth. We run the world now with pandemic health policy. That's everything we can read on the screen on this picture. And yeah, let's continue reading. My father's coming in with dessert.
Of the Google movement to support anti-racist groups, such as Black Lives Matter, have been met with wariness and skepticism. 1618. Some members of the movement claim that the group and its ideology are nothing more than online jokes, However, law enforcement and researchers maintain that people connected to the groups have been implicated in plans to commit real-world violence. 1920, the Tech Transparency Project has observed that, while public posts on Boogaloo Facebook pages tend to be satirical, members of private Boogaloo groups exchange detailed information and tactics on how to organize and execute a revolt against American authorities.
Okay, what I also found was that White Lives Matter is a hate slogan, slang term on adl.org/education/references/hate-symbols/white-lives-matter. So now you can check it out for yourselves.
Some of the private groups ban the sharing of memes to keep conversation focused on serious topics. 12. The NCRI has also commented on the mix of serious and joking content, writing, "This ambiguity is a key feature of the problem. Like a virus hiding from the immune system, the use of comical meme language permits the network to organize violence secretly behind a mirage of inside jokes and plausible deniability." 2. According to the nonprofit network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI, groups belonging to the Boogaloo movement organize on mainstream online platforms including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit, as well as on more obscure platforms such as 4chan. 111, Blinkat identifies Facebook as a particularly important platform for the movement, and that the movement numbers in the tens of thousands. 15. The NCRI researchers also estimate the movement to have tens of thousands of members. 2. History extremism researchers first took notice of the word Boogaloo being used in the context of the Boogaloo movement in 2019, when they observed it being used among fringe groups including militias, gun rights movements, and white supremacist groups. 1. This usage of the term is believed to have originated on the fringe image board website 4chan, where it was often accompanied by references to Race War and Daughter, Day of the Rope, a neo-Nazi reference to a fantasy involving murdering what the posters viewed to be race traitors. 16. Researchers from the network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI, found that the usage of the term Boogaloo increased by 50% on Facebook and Twitter in the last months of 2019 and into early 2020. They attribute surges in popularity to a viral incident in November 2019, when a military veteran posted content mentioning the Boogaloo on Instagram during a standoff with police, and to the December 2019 impeachment of Donald Trump. 1-2. The Boogaloo movement experienced a further surge in popularity following the lockdowns that were implemented to try to slow the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. And the Tech Transparency Project observed that the Boogaloo groups appeared to be encouraged by President Trump's tweets about liberating states under lockdown. 3/7/21, the Tech Transparency Project also found that 60% of Boogaloo Facebook groups had emerged following the pandemic lockdowns, during which time they amassed tens of thousands of members. 7/12. A Facebook spokesperson said that Facebook and Instagram had changed their policies as of May 1 to prohibit the use of Boogaloo and related terms when accompanied by statements and images depicting armed violence. 7/21. On March 12, 2020, a Boogaloo Facebook group leader named Duncan Lemp was shot and killed by police in an unlocked raid of his home in Potomac, Maryland. Police had obtained the search warrant based on a tip that Lemp was violating a restriction from possessing firearms, though Lemp's family has contested that he was under any such restriction. 22. Lemp's family has also asserted that he was asleep when he was killed by police. 23. Some far-right groups have theorized that Lemp was killed by police for his anti-government beliefs and his position in the Boogaloo movement. 7. J. McNabb, a fellow of the George Washington University Extremism Program, has described Lemp as a martyr of the Boogaloo movement, and warned that the increase in anti-police sentiment among Boogaloo group members following his death may lead to violence against the police in the foreseeable future. 3. A Facebook user who was later identified as Aaron Swinson was arrested on April 11, 2020 in Texas, after streaming a live video on Facebook in which he stated he was driving around looking for police officers to ambush. He was apprehended after a high-speed police chase, and found to be wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying loaded firearms and ammunition. Swinson had shared Boogaloo memes on his Facebook page, and other members of the movement watched and commented during his livestream. Swinson had also posted a photo to Facebook the day after the shooting of Duncan Lamb, in which he wore a Hawaiian shirt and combat vest and used the hashtag #his name was Duncan. 724. Some Boogaloo groups joined the protests against law enforcement that occurred across the United States in May and June 2020 in response to the killing of George Floyd. 8-9. According to Vice, although the Boogaloo groups tried to position themselves as allies of the Black Lives Matter movement, they generally avoided addressing police brutality as a racial issue. 8. Some members of Boogaloo groups said they were attending protests to provide protection, either to the protesters or to stores. Posts in some online Boogaloo groups called for their members to loot police stations and set fire to government buildings, and some encouraged actions emulating the rooftop Koreans, a reference to Korean store owners who shot at looters from roofs during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. However, the posts do not appear to have resulted in any such actions by Boogaloo group members. 25. On May 30th, 3 men who identified themselves as members of the Boogaloo movement were arrested on terrorism charges. The men, who had been plotting since April to bomb an electrical substation, had decided instead to focus on the protests that were happening throughout the country in response to the killing of George Floyd. At an anti-lockdown protest in Las Vegas several days earlier, they had told a confidential informant that they intended to try to incite violence and kick off a riot at a George Floyd protest. They were arrested when they were found filling canisters with gasoline and creating Molotov cocktails on their way to such a protest on May 30th, and each was charged with the federal crimes of conspiracy to damage and destroy by fire and explosive and possession of unregistered firearms. They were also accused in state court of felony conspiracy, terrorism, and possession of explosives. Wikipedia.org/wiki/Boogaloo_movement In political and social theory, accelerationism is the idea that capitalism, or particular processes that historically characterized capitalism, should be accelerated instead of overcome in order to generate radical social change. Accelerationism may also refer more broadly, and usually pejoratively, to support for the intensification of capitalism in the belief that this will hasten its self-destructive tendencies and ultimately lead to its collapse. 1-2. Some contemporary accelerationist philosophy starts with the Deleuze-Guattarian theory of deterritorialization, aiming to identify and radicalize the social forces that promote this emancipatory process. 3. Clarification needed. Accelerationist theory has been divided into mutually contradictory left-wing and right-wing variants. Left accelerationism attempts to press the process of technological evolution beyond the constrictive horizon of capitalism, for example by repurposing modern technology for socially beneficial and emancipatory ends. Right accelerationism supports the indefinite intensification of capitalism itself, possibly in order to bring about a technological singularity. 4, 5, 6. Accelerationist writers have additionally distinguished other variants, such as unconditional accelerationism. 7. A far-right, white nationalist adaptation of the term surfacing during the 2010s eschews the focus on capitalism of the prior variants, to instead refer to an acceleration of racial conflict resulting in a white ethnic state. Background: a number of philosophers have expressed apparently accelerationist attitudes, including Karl Marx in his 1848 speech on the question of free trade. But, in general, the protective system of our day is conservative, while the free trade system is destructive. It breaks up whole nationalities and pushes the antagonism of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie to the extreme point. In a word, the free trade system hastens the social revolution. It is in this revolutionary sense alone, gentlemen, that I vote in favor of free trade. 8. In a similar vein, Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the leveling process of European man is the great process which should not be checked, one should even accelerate it. 9. A statement often simplified, following Deleuze and Guattari, to a command to accelerate the process. 10.
Well, I think that's about it for this broadcast. We can check if there are other live things going on.
Oké. Ik heb nog een ander thema.
Well, wait a second. We're live on the air. Is this for on the air?
No.
No. So this seems to be looped on the real packs, basically. Live, all 4 ex-Minneapolis police officers involved in George Floyd's death now face charges. 1,126 watching now. I don't know if it's still current. Bloomberg Quick Take News.
And the church the day before almost succeeded. The church was badly hurt.
Demonstrators marched over the Brooklyn Bridge with George Floyd's brother, NBC New York. That's also going on live. I think it's still going on, perhaps. Chapter 4 over New York City protests. And protests continue through Santa Monica, Los Angeles in outrage over George Floyd killing. 4,350 views. KTLA 5, and it's not live anymore. Did I watch number 170 already? So the memorial service is going on, and today is Thursday. I can check when the burial supposedly would be. On Monday there will be a public viewing from noon to 6 p.m. local time at the Fountain of Praise in Houston, where Floyd grew up. The funeral and burial will be June 9th at 11 a.m. USA Today reported. So anyway, I think most people are not racist, so I think they can't turn it into a civil war, basically. Do you think that, and that most of the protests there were huge, and there are still huge protests going on, and that most of them are really peaceful?
Mhm.
So more yellow vests died than people in the protests.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, over George Floyd's death. So we can all wonder what would have happened if it wouldn't have been filmed.
Of course. What was the
Or
original
if it would have
reason
been-
for arresting him?
Or if it would have been Chinese or white person. The original, well, I've covered it in this broadcast, so you can check this broadcast.
Okay.
The MercuryNews.com article says surveillance video shows he was complying with the police, but I think things happened off camera supposedly, and I think there are two videos. But of course I cannot confirm or deny this at this point. People can check these articles for themselves. I put links in the description. So thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe and share, and check out my other, perhaps more important videos, also about preparing and survival methods, having enough food for a possible lockdown, and I'd say safety first. So there may be people that want these protests to impose more draconian sanctions upon the people and declare martial law. And I think there are infinite ways to prevent this scenario. Even if they've planned it, we can also make a plan and use only legal methods, because otherwise we become the criminals ourselves. And I think there are 7 billion of us that they want to exterminate, so I think that people can come up with something, and that most people in our government and most people on our planet are not murderers in reality. So they're quite civilized and deserve some love and respect, no matter what skin color they have, what sexual preference, or what religion or non-religion they are a part of, or how do you express it? So see you all next time on YouTube on Perfect Society. Peace out.